WrestlePod is supported by viewers like you. To support WrestlePod and the other programs on this channel, visit patreon.com/Ian Beaumont live and direct. There's a brand new women's champion in town. WOS Wrestling crowns its first women's champion. Find out who and the other big stories from episode 2 right now on WrestlePod. Beaumont live and direct. This is WrestlePod. Welcome along if you've joined us today for the first time. Ian Beaumont here. Thank you very much for watching last week if you did. And thanks to the people who commented. Now, before I get into the review, I do want to take a little bit of time to talk about something that was brought up as a result of last week's review. But I do know about the editing, and it was a well thought out, it was a well argued comment, and thank you to Nathan Norman for your comment. He said, to be honest, I was annoyed with the camera angles in WOS. I know that it's the first episode, and I don't expect WWE levels of quality, but the cuts and the crowd shots were overdone. This was something that was brought up in the pilot, and I do think they toned it down a little bit from the pilot. But also, there were a number of cuts on, shall we say, major impact points when it might be a difficult sell to a regulator about showing that at tea time. This was something that WWE certainly used to do back in the day. I remember this from a lot of old episodes of Mania, Action Zone, Superstars Challenge, anything that was shown pre-Watershed. Every time a spot would happen where it was, not very kid-friendly or family-friendly, they would cut away to a crowd reaction shot and then cut back after the impact had happened. It would be like a 1-second cut. Those don't bother me. I don't really worry about those sorts of cuts. They're just pretty much what I expect from a wrestling TV show airing at 5 p.m. in the UK. So, admittedly, if you watch Raw or SmackDown live, you probably won't see those sorts of cutaways. But if you watch the daytime repeats that they tend to do, or the highlights versions, they do cut away from some of those big spots. But yeah, it wasn't as bad as the pilot last year. The pilot did or New Year's Eve 2016, I should say. The pilot did overdo it a little bit, but it wasn't so bad this time. That's my feeling. So, yeah, I didn't comment on it because I didn't really get bothered by it too much. But thank you very much, Nathan, for your comments. And if you have anything to say on episode 2 after I'm done, drop it down in the comments. Let's talk about it. I might even answer, if it's a good enough point, I might even answer it next week. Right, let's get on to episode 2 itself. And we are now starting to see a relatively standard pattern for World of Sport Wrestling. That first segment is always going to be about a couple of minutes promo before you get into the first match. Here, you had Stu Bennett getting up from the commentary table. He is, of course, the WOS executive, providing commentary as well, which is a weird combination, but I don't mind that. He puts over Rampage Brown as the WOS Wrestling Champion. He then promotes the fact that there's a Women's Championship match coming up in the main event later on, which is great. I love the fact that the first main event was the WOS Championship. The second main event is the WOS Women's Championship. Can't ask for better than that, can you? Then he says, we're going to have a championship celebration. Rampage comes out then alongside his two heavies. Not that he really needs heavies, but boy, they're heavies. Sha Samuels and CJ Banks. Rampage doesn't cut promo. CJ doesn't cut promo. It's just Sha Samuels that cuts a promo, and it's a very quick one because it's cut off by Joe Hendry. They're sometimes referring to him as the prestigious one, but this is much more his local hero gimmick than it is the prestigious one, which is very much a heel gimmick. But they're using that as a babyface name. I don't know. Hendry cuts a promo basically asking for a title shot. Brought up on commentary that apparently Rampage and Stu Bennett exchange looks. And Stu makes the match. He says, ring the bell. And Shane said, did I just see what I think I saw? You two were exchanging glances. And Stu just says, no, I was making sure Rampage was ready to have the match. And he was. So, okay, I'll buy it, but it's a little bit suspect. So yes, Rampage defends against Joe Hendry. First match of the night is for the WOS Championship. Wow. Lots of quick covers early on. Hendry has the advantage in the early going until Shah and CJ provide the distraction, allowing Rampage to capitalize and take control. One point, Rampage has the referee distracted. Hendry gets then hit by Sha Samuels from the outside into the ring, which is you don't see that a lot. You usually see somebody get pulled out, hit, and then thrown back in. No, this was a throw through the. This was a punch thrown through the ropes. That's pretty rare. I have to be honest. In this particular match, I wasn't too keen on Alex Shane and SoCal Val ganging up on Stu Bennett here. The 2-on-1 scenario didn't really work. The chemistry is great. Everything, they found their characters. It all worked so well. That was evident in the rest of the match. But here I was just, not too sure on that. Hendry hits a side suplex on Rampage to take back control of the match, gets a 2 count. Hendry applies the ankle lock. He now calls it the Hendry lock. He applies that twice. Now, the first time that happens, Rampage gets to the ropes, forces the break. The second time that happens, CJ Banks actually gets into the ring to distract Hendry. And then gets out pretty quickly. And then Rampage hits a spike DDT to win and retain the WOS Championship. I think if I were to give this a star rating, it would be about 2.5 out of 5. It was a fairly competent opening match. Nothing too over the top. And kind of worked well. And here's the one thing, I didn't talk about this last week, but I will mention it this week, because it's been 2 weeks now. Commercial breaks are always between the matches, although last week one team would come out at the start of a match to start the match. The other team then came out after the break. I don't mind that too much, but this was much better. all the matches happened. The commercial breaks then took place, and then you had another match. That finished, commercial break, match, commercial break, match. That much better. It's much nicer to see a whole match straight the way through than it is to do what WWE are so fond of doing these days, and cutting off your investment in the match mid-flow by going to a commercial break in the middle of the match. It was one of those things. When it first happened, I didn't mind it because it was different to what was going on. Now it's just done so much that I just don't want to see it anymore. Next up, we actually have a ladder match for a contract in a briefcase. Who wants to say Money in the Bank? No, it's not a title shot. But this is very much a Money in the Bank ladder match, style match. But that contract is going to be interesting. And we'll probably end up talking about that next week. But we'll see. Anyhow, the match was between Liam Slater, Robbie X, Gabriel Kidd, and Lionheart. No, not Chris Jericho. Lionheart's a Scottish wrestler. They're all good, to be honest. Fast start. Lionheart takes out Kidd and Slater in the early going. Cuts it down to about a one-on-one then between Robbie X and Lionheart for a while. Lionheart goes for the ladder, sets it up in the corner, tries to throw Kidd into it a couple of times, doesn't quite work. And then Kidd then slingshots Lionheart into the ladder, and that was one of the notable moments. They actually cut away from the impact, so you don't actually see the impact. But it happened all right. Wow. I never liked watching those spots. I love them in terms of the match, but in terms of the impact on the back, ow. Slater suplexes Lionheart. He goes for the ladder. Kidd takes him off the ladder, then goes up the ladder himself about halfway, and drops the elbow on Macho Man Randy Savage elbow drop. Oh yeah. But why did I do that just then? I don't know. But it was very much halfway up the ladder on that elbow drop. Ow. God, that looked painful. Robbie X climbs up a ladder in the corner to then do a moonsault off the thing onto Lionheart and Slater. Robbie X tries to go up the ladder, but readjusting it and putting it in the right place to go for the briefcase. Lionheart pushes the ladder over, sending Robbie X to the outside. While all that is happening, Slater gets the other ladder, which is a bigger ladder. The two ladders are different sizes. Interesting. So he then sets up this other ladder next to the first. Climbs up, but gets met by Lionheart, who then delivers a rock bottom from halfway up the ladders. Oh my God, that looked brutal. That was insane. But yeah, wow. Then Lionheart gets up, tries to go up. Gabriel Kidd goes up the other ladder on the other side, and then pushes Lionheart off the other ladder, takes down the briefcase. and wins the match. He's interviewed by, I think her name is Rachel Sterling. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But I think her name is Rachel Sterling. After the match, he's excited for what this opportunity is going to be. Judging by the preview at the end of the episode, he probably shouldn't be. We'll see what happens next week. Another commercial break, and we're back with another tag team title tournament match. Wow. Tea time. Adam Maxter and Nathan Cruz taking on Doug Williams and H.G. Drake. Doug, I have to admit, is one of my favourite British wrestlers of all time. Going like way back, that is. And definitely he did a lot of work in the 2000s and the early 2010s to put British wrestling back on the map internationally. Did a great job in doing so. Match starts kind of interesting because Doug Williams puts Nathan Cruz in an old-fashioned Japanese stranglehold. It's where you have the hands, you cross them over, and you wrap them around the neck like that. The old-fashioned Japanese stranglehold. Nice little move, that one. Cruz manages to reverse it. Williams gets out. There's a few quick covers. Williams hits a beautiful cross body. Only gets a 2 count, though. And in my notes, I wrote Drake and Williams working exceedingly well together. Because they really did in this match. There were a lot of quick tags in and out between the two. They were looking like the unit. Maxter and Cruz then cheat to take control of the match. Cruz hits a slingshot belly to back suplex for a 2 count. Man, that looked hard. Cruz then so Maxter's beating down on Drake for a while. Williams is reaching out for the tag, over the rope. And just before Drake gets there, Nathan Cruz comes down, pulls him off the apron. But eventually the hot tag does come. And I think as SoCal Val said in commentary, school is in session. Exploder suplex for a 2 count. Drake hits a roll up on one of the guys. I can't remember which one. Also gets 2 count. But Maxter hits an amazing move. Really big move on Drake. Cruz is the legal man, though. So Cruz moves in, gets the cover. 1, 2, 3. And Nathan Cruz advance in the tag team tournament. And so we have 2 matches down to sort out the semi-finals. 2 to go. Last commercial break. Then we have the WOS Women's Championship match. Viper versus Kaylee Ray versus Bea Priestley. Triple threat match. 1 fall to decide. And boy, they went off to a fast start. A couple of quick roll up. I say a fast start because Kaylee Ray offered Bea Priestley her hand. They shook. And then Kaylee offered Viper her hand. Viper slapped it away. And in that moment, you had a couple of quick roll-ups for a couple of near falls. Viper then started dominating both Ray and Priestley. It looked pretty brutal. I have to say, a double crossbody by Viper and covering both of them got a 2 count. They both kicked out, but man, That actually looked quite brutal to see a 200-pound woman basically take down to about 120-pound women with a crossbody like that. Viper hits a Vader bomb on Priestley, gets a 2 count. Then you get Priestley and Ray teaming up for a bit. Double team kicks the Viper. Then they work together to take her down. Priestley then turns on Ray for a couple of 2 counts. And there was a double foot stomp as well in the corner. And oh my God, that was a very close 2. There was another. I don't remember what it was, but there was one move and then bang, another very close 2. Viper does a cannonball on Ray and Priestley in the corner. Oh my God, that looked worse than Kevin Owens doing one. And worse as in more painful. Like, ow. You can imagine the breath getting knocked out of you. But there's a quick Michinoku drive. There's a Michinoku driver as well. That was another 2 count. And then Kaylee Ray, who had been trying to lift Viper up all match, trying to set this up, finally gets her off her feet and hits a Widow's Peak. Victoria's old move in WWE, who was Tara in Impact. She used the Widow's Peak. Widow's Peak by Kaylee Ray to get the 3 count, win the match, first ever WOS Women's Champion. Really impressed by this match. I didn't give star ratings to the others. I have to say, I think for the ladder match, I would give 3 stars. The tag team tournament title match, I'm going to give it about 2.5. This one, I'm going to give 3.5 stars. The women's championship match, really good. I mean, these are TV matches that are, because they're all about 10-minute time limits. But man, they are packing it in really well. And more than that, you got a ladder match here in this episode. Ladder matches we've had some pretty amazing matches in the early going, which I, didn't expect. I thought we'd take a little. I thought we might take a couple of weeks to get the really good stuff. But no, we've had a couple of really good we've had some really good matches. Nothing's been really awful. I think the first match on the first episode has been about the worst of the bunch, and even then that wasn't that bad. But yeah, next week they're talking, and this is the other funny thing. Last week, and they mentioned it in the opening package, they mentioned that Joe Hendry got screwed over by Martin Kirby in their tag team match. Martin Kirby played no role in Joe Hendry's match. Didn't need to. There were plenty of others. But, I mean, that was a little odd. That didn't come into play at all. But apparently it's coming into play next week. Will Joe Hendry get his revenge? Or will Martin Kirby prove he was right to leave his tag team partner? We will see next week. But that is going to do it for this episode of WrestlePod. Like, share, subscribe, support me on Patreon, patreon.com/Ian Beaumont Live and Direct. So until next week, thank you for